The end of human history has already been written. There are no surprises to God, and there are no surprises to those who understand what God has revealed. We are not headed towards some humanly engineered utopia. We are not on the way to an age of peace and tranquility.
One of America's biggest cities sinking into chaos.
Tonight, we have witnessed lawlessness and chaos on the streets as the violence escalates despite calls from Baltimore, where the governor of Maryland has declared a state of emergency.
This is a grieving family that deserves answers for their son. Together we united!
And what our Lord says about the future is horrendous. According to the Lord Jesus, the future for this world and its inhabitants is very, very tragic.
We need to realize how close this clock is to getting toward the midnight hour. And I think that's why, for our sake, for the sake of our family, for our nation, we need to cry out to a holy God. This is coming faster than anyone can see.
A powerful earthquake struck Nepal on Saturday. The 7.9 magnitude quake's epicenter was just 80 kilometers east of Nepal's second largest city, Pokhara, devastating the surrounding area and sending tremors through northern India and even triggering avalanches on Mount Everest.
The death toll has reached over 7,500, with more than 16,000 people injured. Thousands of missing are still unaccounted for.
I know I worked very hard on the Intelligence Committee to try and keep up with what was happening in the world. It got to such a crescendo, I could hardly keep up with it anymore. The events have picked up such a pace, and they're going to continue. It's just like the Bible forewarned, that in the last days it will be like the beginning of birth pains. In my opinion, we are far beyond the beginning of birth pains. We're moving far down into the process. For women who are listening to this show today, you know what I'm talking about, what it's like to deliver a baby at the very beginning stage and then at the very end before the baby is born. All I can tell you as a mom who has given birth to 5 babies, the birth pains are very close together, they're very intense now, and we are literally watching month by month the speed move up to a level we've never seen before with these events. And that's why the best thing that we can do is have churches and pastors explain our times. Believers need to get our lives right with God, and then we intercede. We intercede and intercede, and then not despair. Prophets said we look to the future. We long to see those days and live in those days. Why? Because it's the return of a soon and coming King. Jesus Christ is coming back. We, in our lifetimes, potentially could see Jesus Christ returning to earth. This is one of the most exciting times in history. We need to be exactly watching the tenor of the times, be observing, and look up. Our redemption draweth nigh. These are wonderful times, but we see the destruction, but this is the destruction that was foretold.
The scale of the flooding has been difficult to believe. In southwestern Peru, it almost submerged this bridge. Further north, the rain brought down this landslide. The country's president has declared a state of emergency. Further south, in neighbouring Chile, the rain is still causing trouble. Copiapó is the capital of the Atacama region, normally one of the driest places on Earth. It normally gets about 1 centimetre of rain a year. It's taken the authorities completely by surprise. This water should have fallen as snow high up in the mountains. Instead, because the weather is unusually warm, it's falling as rain. The storms have been the heaviest for at least 80 years. Meanwhile, other parts of Chile are suffering from drought. The chaotic weather is testing the country's resilience, and forecasters say it could get even worse in the next few months.
Chilean volcano Calbuco has erupted for a 3rd time in just over a week, sending a cloud of ash and smoke high into the sky. The volcano erupted twice last week, spewing over 200 million tons of ash, coating nearby towns, wreaking havoc with the salmon industry and cancelling flights as far away as Buenos Aires. Located some 1,000 kilometers south of Chile's capital, Santiago, Calbuco had lain dormant for nearly 5 decades before erupting twice in the space of 24 hours. Authorities are maintaining a red alert and a 20-kilometer exclusion zone around the crater.
The state of California is resorting to drastic measures tonight to combat its severe drought. The governor ordering the strictest crackdown on water use in history.
As we enter our 4th year of drought here in California, these conditions are symbolic all across the West.
Some reports say the state has only a year's supply of water left in those reservoirs.
Scientists call what's happening here unprecedented. We're technically in the middle of our rainy season. Mountains should be lush with green. Instead, they're bone dry. Tonight, Lake Piru, we're at the bottom of a reservoir. We should be 30 feet underwater here. Instead, these are the conditions. This is why California is in a state of emergency.
We're in an historic drought, and that demands unprecedented action. It's for that reason that I'm issuing an executive order mandating substantial water reduction. Now we are embarked upon an experiment that no one has ever tried, ever, in the history of mankind.
The governor of drought-stricken California has called for a $10,000 fine for residents who waste water.
It's time for Californians to face reality. There isn't enough water.
To the West Coast now, where both Northern and Southern California experienced a lot of shaking. And while both quakes are considered mild, it still has lots of people thinking about the possible big one.
The worry is that these small quakes will trigger a big quake. Hopefully not the big one. Be prepared to feel some shaking in the next 30 years. That's much more than you felt in the past down here.
An earthquake measuring 7.5 has struck off the coast of Papua New Guinea, triggering a tsunami warning.
Especially there's a tsunami threat for the local inhabitants, for the places close to the earthquake. And they've probably already been hit by the first wave by now.
Costa Rica's Turrialba volcano belched a column of gas and ash upwards of 6,000 feet into the air on Monday. An explosion on Monday afternoon, lasting 28 minutes, emanated from the volcano in central Costa Rica, and ash reached parts of the capital, San Jose, some 30 miles away.
The aftermath of a horrendous storm in Germany. Violent winds swept across the north of the country, leaving at least one person dead in Hamburg and causing widespread damage. Local media reported winds of up to 120 kilometers per hour. I've never seen anything like this in my life. It's complete madness. Hundreds of trees have overturned, completely uprooted, roofs ripped off. In some places, cars were reportedly blown some 70 meters down the road. The storm follows unusually warm weather in this part of Germany.
From Japan and overseas, seismic activity has been increasing. Officials have raised the warning level for the volcano.
They've recorded many earthquakes near the surface of the mountain in the past 2 weeks.
Tornadoes wreaking havoc yet again across the plains, waking up to disaster as the Red Cross and emergency personnel begin combing through the neighborhoods damaged or destroyed in Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska. For the first time in history, the National Weather Service declaring a flash flood emergency in Oklahoma City as tornadoes rip roofs off buildings.
Heavy rains and strong winds flattened houses as Typhoon Noel crashed into the northeastern tip of the Philippines.
For the second time in less than 3 weeks, Nepal has been rocked by another major earthquake. The 7.3 magnitude tremor hit near the Everest Base Camp, killing at least 66 people, destroying buildings and leaving more people homeless.
And there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. This is a sign that we are living in the last days. We are just around the corner. Very soon, we are going to see the King. Very soon. It's right around the door. All the signs that I mentioned are already here. It's already here.
This is the Telica volcano roaring to life in Nicaragua. The country's most active volcano first exploded on Sunday night. Nearly 50 small gas and ash explosions, along with 7 micro-earthquakes, have followed since.
Scientists are sounding an alarm about rising sea levels because the largest ice shelf in Antarctica is in imminent danger of collapse. That would allow glaciers behind it to start flowing into the sea, causing a potentially dangerous rise in sea levels.
Now we have the spare opportunity of this ice shelf destabilizing and eventually collapsing in front of our eyes. It is certainly a warning. The conclusion is inescapable. We expect it will not last for more than a few years to come.
Absolutely, we are really in a state of crisis, not only rising waters and storms, severe storms, and we're looking at a drought which is semi-permanent.
I mean, we're in an era where some people are predicting wars over things like water and food and the like.
One of the most powerful earthquakes in the UK for years has hit Kent overnight.
Well, the quake struck Kent just before 3 this morning, with the magnitude measuring 4.2 on the Richter scale.
It was felt in France and Belgium as well.
Fox Urgent, a magnitude 5.4 earthquake has just hit Nevada, northeast of Las Vegas. We're getting this in just moments ago from the U.S. Geological Survey.
Residents of Konya province, southern Turkey, have described their terror when a giant sinkhole suddenly appeared in a local field. Measuring 10 metres wide and 90 metres deep, the crater formed in the space of 24 hours.
Players in Missouri in the States had a new hazard to contend with there after a sinkhole appeared in the course.
Apparently it's 70 feet wide and 30 feet deep.
Meanwhile, mysterious sinkholes have also appeared elsewhere in Russia's Urals. Craters have emerged one after another in the second largest city in the Perm region, and residents fear half of it could collapse beneath the surface. Some intend to leave their hometown to avoid the danger posed by the craters. And we're not finished yet. A giant hole in the ground also appeared in Siberia. The hole on the Yamal Peninsula is almost 80 meters wide. Its depth, though, is not yet known. An emergency situation committee has yet to say what caused it.
Scientists fear they could point to a looming natural disaster.
Obviously, this phenomenon is quite dangerous. It's a known fact that large craters appeared and swallowed whole buildings in many cities around the world.
An extreme heat wave is sweeping across India. Hundreds of people have died, either from sunstroke or dehydration. Temperatures are soaring, in some places touching 118 degrees Fahrenheit.
All of these states are reporting fatalities. At last count, more than 2,000 people have died from the extreme heat.
Local hospitals are filling up.
Even the roads have melted.
In Rajasthan, or Gujarat, it is 1 in the morning, and the temperature has just dropped from 39 down to 40. I mean, this is over 100 degrees.
Even as the death toll in the current sweltering heat wave crosses the 2,000 mark, Weather Department is predicting that the deadly heat wave will persist.
This morning, record-breaking and deadly floodwaters continue to wreak havoc across central Texas and Oklahoma.
A deluge of historic proportions, and it hard-hit Houston, the devastation is measured in miles. Entire neighborhoods underwater.
The nation's fourth largest city crippled. In just 24 hours, the city getting nearly a quarter of its yearly rainfall.
Nearly 40 counties throughout Texas now under an emergency disaster declaration. The death toll in both southern states continues to rise.
The challenges are not over yet. There's going to be more rain to come.
Meanwhile, a freak tornado has ripped through a border city in northern Mexico, leaving more than a dozen people dead and many more injured. 3 children were among those killed when the surprise whirlwind hit. Flipping over cars and tearing down homes here in Ciudad Acuña, it left a trail of destruction.
A tornado touching down on Ohio overnight.
It flipped vehicles in a shopping centre car park onto their roofs. The twister was one of several severe weather events to hit the United States this week.
Picked up by a waterspout, the bounce house goes airborne. 3 young children inside.
A bounce house right on Fort Lauderdale Beach with 3 children inside taken up into the air by a waterspout 30 feet wide.
The Wolf volcano on Isabella Island erupted for the first time in over 3 decades. Fears have been expressed for the unique ecosystem that inspired Charles Darwin's theory of evolution.
All right, this just coming into us, a volcano on Kuchino-Erabu Island in southern Japan erupted Friday morning. Pyroclastic flows have reached the coast. Meteorological agency officials have issued the highest level warning. They're telling the island's 130 residents to evacuate.
An 8.5 magnitude earthquake has hit off the western coast of Ogasawara Island, south of Tokyo in the Pacific Ocean. It happened about 8:30 p.m. local time, setting off car alarms and shaking buildings as far away as Tokyo.
I warn you, we are in very dangerous times. We are living in biblical times.
The message from this small independent republic to the entire world is one of dignity and freedom and tolerance, liberté, fraternité, égalité.
We are now at the place to where you better have your house in order.
Residents of Konya province, southern Turkey, have described their terror when a giant sinkhole suddenly appeared in a local field. Measuring 10 meters wide and 90 meters deep, the crater formed in the space of 24 hours.
Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, Wyoming to Minnesota. 29 tornadoes in the last 24 hours. In Texas alone, 64 in the past 2 weeks. This tornado hitting Geronimo. A cone of powerful winds destroying this home near Elmer.
Holy that thing is big.
Oklahoma getting hit too. In Norman, torrential downpours.
In 24 hours, San Angelo got the most rain it's seen in 35 years. It was waist-high in Louisiana, thanks to record rain.
I have never seen this much rain. I've been in Shreveport for 32 years.
Storm reports, we had over 170 of them. We mentioned the tornadoes, huge hail, in some cases, baseball-sized hail.
Oh, dude, we're gonna take some baseballs here.
Oh, Jesus! Oh!
Colorado is also getting a drenching.
Here in downtown Denver, the water is rising too. You can see they have totally overflowed their banks. Normally, it looks like this.
And in the Rockies, a snowstorm just a month away from summer.
Massive landslide triggered by heavy rains in northwest Colombia has killed at least 40 people, with authorities warning the death toll is expected to rise.
Arabalar geliyor. Eyvah eyvah, bak eyvah, arabalar gidiyor.
The stairs to the basement, it's full to the top.
Oh, it was just gushing down, and there's some places like where that tree is there, the water would come down and it'd go up 6 feet, just go up, gush, go up, gush.
This is supposed to be British Columbia's desert climate. And it's, yeah, no one's ever seen anything hit this fast.
It is the deadliest natural disaster in the United States this year. The flooding in Texas and Oklahoma is now blamed for at least 26 deaths. 13 people are missing. 35 trillion gallons of rain has fallen in Texas this month, enough to cover the nation's second largest state in 8 inches of water. The Houston area is facing a major disaster. More than half a foot of rain pounded America's 4th largest city. The currents were strong enough to sweep homes off their foundation.
The trail of damage is clear where an F1 tornado touched down Sunday morning in southwest Houston. Many of the 24 buildings that make up the Rockport apartment homes were shredded.
Rivers in Austin were already overflowing from one of the city's wettest May on record. On Monday, they spilled out onto the streets.
This is the highest flood that we've ever had in recorded history in the state of Texas.
In Dallas, floodwaters blocked thousands of cars on a freeway for up to 6 hours as rainfall reached almost 18 centimeters.
Rescue crews in Wimberley are searching for 12 people still missing after floodwaters swept through the small town. More than 70 homes were destroyed here, with at least 1,200 more damaged.
This is how tornadoes and record rainfall have left the Lone Star State. More than 1,000 homes damaged or destroyed and thousands of residents displaced.
We've been in a drought for quite some time now, and all of a sudden we went from having not enough water to way too much.
He needs to get out. He's lucky he got... Get out. Get out. Oh shit, here we go, here we go, here we go. Oh my God, oh my God. Oh my God, oh my God. Oh my goodness.
Freak tornado has ripped through a border city in northern Mexico, leaving more than a dozen people dead and many more injured.
Melting roads in New Delhi as temperatures neared 50 degrees Celsius.
The heat has now claimed 1,700 lives in just 1 week, the highest numbers of deaths since 1995. The searing weather has left tens of thousands of people in New Delhi without power supply.
Heavy rainfall continues in southern China, where mudslides and flooding have caused the deaths of at least 10 people. The torrential downpours have washed out roads and farmlands, and more than 500,000 people in 8 provinces have been affected.
The rainfall in the first week of June has reached a record high.
Life-threatening floods from Texas to Illinois. Storms dropping up to a foot of rain in some areas, shutting down roads and highways.
Torrential rain from Tropical Storm Bill surging north. Powerful floodwaters here in Ardmore, sweeping a toddler out of her father's arms. In Turner Falls Park, floodwaters rampaging through trees and nearly over that fence. Flash flooding, trapping this driver in his SUV. He and his dog abandoning the car. This Indiana neighborhood completely flooded, and more rain expected today. Tornado warnings issued in South Dakota. An incredible light show seen there.
Finding site taking shape in South Florida. Several waterspouts showing up over Fort Lauderdale.
What a bizarre story out of Fort Lauderdale this morning. People out here say they saw up to 4 waterspouts at one time.
Extreme weather with more than 40 million Americans at risk for flooding or severe storms.
Texas cannot catch a break. The Guadalupe River flooding, rushing water flowing over its banks. A severe thunderstorm plunging Kansas City International Airport into darkness.
It's a virtual water world in parts of Texas.
It's getting a lot worse, man, for sure.
North of Dallas, more flash flooding rain. This bridge collapsing into the South Sulphur River. A boy getting sucked into that culvert. Witnesses racing to help him. Overnight, intense lightning brightening dark skies across the country, hitting the John Hancock Building in Chicago, and non-stop flashes in D.C. In South Dakota, baseball-sized hail crashing to the ground.
That biggest one's 3 inches in diameter.
Heavy rains causing roadway closures in Missouri. Remnants of Tropical Storm Bill forcing fire crews to rescue people from flooded homes in Illinois.
A Spillertown couple woke up to a terrifying sight just outside their house. A sinkhole has opened up just feet from their back door.
James Swan says Saturday you couldn't see the water through all the trees lining this pond.
But Tuesday, those trees had vanished into a 40-foot wide sinkhole.
More than 400 people have died so far in a heat wave in southern Pakistan. Temperatures have soared above 45 degrees Celsius or 113 Fahrenheit.
Look at that! That's freaking nuts! This is a tornado! Holy shit!
Violent storms striking the East Coast. Amtrak passengers stuck on the tracks for hours after a transformer exploded in the heavy winds. All this as power lines snapped in half with winds reaching 70 miles per hour.
Nearly 500,000 people left in the dark. I've never seen anything like this.
In New Jersey, heavy winds flipped this car over. Parts of this shopping center severely damaged.
It was crazy winds. They were coming straight down the street.
Across Pennsylvania, trees uprooted, some ending up in houses. And check out this lightning flashing behind our capital as those storms reach the East Coast.
5 tornadoes are believed to have touched down in northern and central Illinois.
The storm roared into Coal City around 10 o'clock last night. Refugio Luvano was in his house Monday, just as he was in 2013 when an EF4 touched down in Coal City. It demolished his home. That home is not even finished being rebuilt.
Parts of India's northwest is underwater after days of heavy rain triggered floods and landslides, killing dozens of people.
Overnight, up to 5 inches of blinding rain across Iowa. Severe storms with incredible structure. In Denver,
came out of nowhere, a lot of hail, a lot of rain.
2 inches of rain falling in just an hour. Flash floods stranding drivers, leaving their cars behind.
He is done. He is done. Oh my God.
In California, the scorching heat and persistent drought fueling the worst fire season conditions ever.
California firefighters are battling a new wildfire this morning. The Sterling fire broke out yesterday in the San Bernardino Mountains. More than 70% of California is currently dealing with extreme or exceptional drought conditions.
Firefighters here in the San Bernardino Mountains have been fighting this fire for more than a week now. It's one of some 2,500 fires that have broken out in California so far this year. CAL FIRE, California's statewide fire agency, reports there's already been a 50% increase in the number of fires this year compared to 2014.
Washington has already seen 313 wildfires. That alone speaks volumes.
Last year at this time, it was 214. In 2012, it was 155. And in 2011, just 55.
One look at this 15-foot wide depression in the driveway of this Port Richey home was enough for police and fire rescue to start issuing voluntary evacuation orders for 10 homes, and that's depressions, plural. This one in the front, another in the back. All the result, investigators say, of this home, 2 lots over, that's been undergoing ground repairs for 3 sinkholes on their property when the ground gave way nearby this afternoon.
Severe flooding due to heavy rain has caused widespread damage to roads and homes in Costa Rica. Landslides have collapsed bridges, interrupted communications and forced more than 1,500 people to seek alternative accommodation.
On in the waters off North Carolina. Overnight, news of a teen viciously attacked by a shark. The 6th time in just 2 weeks, visitors to North Carolina beaches have been seriously injured by the deadly predators.
It was what we classify as a firestorm.
The Sleepy Hollow fire is still burning, now more than 3,000 acres, with entire subdivisions evacuated.
At least 24 homes are completely gone. This fire has torched at least 3,000 acres, nearly 3 square miles. It was so intense, embers blew all the way downtown and caught the recycling center on fire. Winds whipped the flames up in record heat temperatures, topping 104 degrees.
Wild hail across several parts of the country. In Prescott, Arizona, look at this. It looks like snow on the ground. Minneapolis, St. Paul, that area had 2 rounds of hail last night, one right during rush hour.
Half a year's worth of rain in just 1 month. The city of Nanjing has been hit by relentless downpours. The Nanjiang County of Sichuan Province has seen its heaviest flooding in nearly 7 decades.
What the hell is that, a meteor? Damn. Damn, that's crazy. That is unreal. That was awesome. I've never seen anything like that before.
merciless, massive tornadoes.
Tornado on the ground!
Ripping across Colorado.
Oh, it's violent.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And near Denver, you can see the aftermath. Dozens of homes and farms destroyed, this house completely gutted. And it wasn't just tornadoes. Torrential rain and hail, hammering drivers. Overnight, a series of vicious storms tearing through Nevada. Overnight in Kansas, drivers unable to see the roads. And in Missouri, water has taken over many of the roadways, making travel dangerous.
This is something like from hell.
People shoveling their cars out to get to work today. The hail only fell on one block like this, Alaska Avenue and Irving Street.
It started late last night as a rainstorm. In the early hours this morning, morphed into a winter wonderland. The extremely slow-moving storm unloaded its crystallized cargo in one very small and localized spot.
This morning, this is the sinkhole on Oxford and Santa Fe this morning. That police SUV inside the sinkhole swallowed up as the ground just gave out below the driver.
48 hours of extreme weather. During our interview with the storm chaser,
so that we can...
bolts of lightning, golf ball-sized hail. Tonight, Lusk is underwater.
That bridge over there is starting to collapse.
Here's the bridge, completely collapsed.
I've never seen this before.
Flipped cars littering downtown after being washed away in raging water.
Lari.
This was the scene in Rainbow City, Alabama Tuesday morning after lightning sparked an apartment fire. The building was completely destroyed. Devastating scene in Louisiana where streets have been turned into lakes. Hundreds of homes have been flooded, some completely underwater. This was the scene in Shreveport after the Red River crested 7 feet above flood stage, the highest level it's been since 1945.
The early afternoon blast ripped part of the roof off the Quantum Energy Storage Building and was heard in many neighboring business offices.
It was a boom, boom. It was just, and then it shook.
It felt like either a jet plane or something had come over and hit a sonic boom.
My first thought was either a vehicle crashed into our building or possibly even the air conditioning unit had fallen through the roof.
Thousands of people are being evacuated to safer areas from the danger zone around Mount Sinabung in North Sumatra after the volcano's alert status was raised to the top level before an eruption. Following a big increase in activity at Sinabung,
heavy rain started just before midnight. This small waterway in the city became a raging river. 8 people have died and several others still missing. The city's zoo was also flooded, so wolves, bears, big cats, tigers, and even this hippopotamus escaped and have been roaming parts of the city. Astounding stuff. It just shows you how intense those floods actually were.
Rare and spectacular occurrence, a winter whiteout in the red centre. The normally harsh, scorched earth of Alice Springs transformed during a freak hailstorm, tourists and locals stunned.
In just 24 hours, one wildfire in Alaska started after a lightning strike. Went from 2 acres to more than 6,500 acres. A second has started south of Alaska's largest city, and a third near the village of Dot Lake. The fires have displaced hundreds of people. Record-breaking temperatures this past May amid a late spring heat wave.
At Indian Hills, and it smells like propane. I don't know if you can see it, but if you look right across, right above the green, there's this haze that looks like a gas.